In fact, the chapter in Paul's book is entitled, "You've Seen These, Haven't You?" Yes, it is true. During the 70s, when I first met Paul and we were both starting out in our careers, I was a freewheeling breast exposer. I must have been fond of my boobies because I remember flashing them more often than not.
Why don't you read something? Read how you tell us how you came up with the title, and then you could read what Steve Martin suggested.
Oh, all right. Well, okay. I need my glasses. Let's see here. So the title of the chapter is called "Perky Tits." Okay. When Steve Martin suggests a title for your book, you listen. At first, upon hearing the title, I felt uncomfortable and a little embarrassed. I was one of 8 dinner guests at Steve's home, and we were all sitting around the table where an animated conversation about my forthcoming book was as delicious to my ears as his chef's choice of Arctic char and aged New York steak was to my palate. "Perky Tits," Steve Martin yelled out. "That should be the title of your book." The 7 other dinner guests, Marty Short, Eugene Levy and his wife Deb Devine, Laurie McDonald and her husband Walter Parks, a couple I was meeting for the first time, the distinguished author Frederick Tutton and his partner Karen Marta, an editor for Vogue, all of them began to laugh. Happy for the attention, but nevertheless shocked by the description of my private parts, I was intrigued as to why Steve had come up with that title. "Wow, what made you think of that, Steve?" I asked, giggling and flattered that he even cared I was writing a book. How could I question the great Steve Martin, whose best-selling books and their titles, Shop Girl, Cruel Shoes, and Born Standing Up, are genius? But aren't all those titles much tamer than Perky Tits? Was he being facetious? Was he just tossing out a funny title to get a laugh? Believe me, I was grateful and relieved that someone else was suggesting a possible title for my book. I had been fixating on titles for months. It was a fabulous trick I had unconsciously discovered as I convinced myself I was writing my book, when all along I was just procrastinating my perky tits off. Steve and I began to engage in book title banter, and the rest of the dinner guests weighed in. I threw out a couple of my ideas. "She's the best thing in it." Silence mixed with disdain. "TMI, too much information." "Dated," Steve said. I offered up another. "You look like someone." "Too self-deprecating," someone else yelled out. "How about fake beaver?" I asked timidly, as I began to lose my bravura and settle into my comfort zone of low self-esteem. "I think it's good because it describes my fake status in Canada as a Canadian, when all along I'm an American with immigration status living in Canada, which is home to the beaver." Oh my God, what the hell was I talking about? I started backpedaling. "No, too vulgar," someone said. "Perky Tits is much better." "Yes, yes," another voice chimed in. "Perky Tits. I would buy that book. Perky Tits. It describes your personality. Perky Tits. It cuts right through. There's Tina Fey's bossy pants and Andrea Martin's perky tits." "Really?" I said weakly, slowly doubting myself. It was clear I was an uninspired fraud, not an author. I had no pulse on what would sell, on who I was. I was definitely going to give my advance back to HarperCollins. "It's a part of your past," Steve said. "It's relevant." How did he know my perky tits were a part of my past? I guess he'd read Paul Schaefer's autobiography, in which one chapter is dedicated to my pert boobies. He would have read that when I was younger, I wasn't shy about saying the word tits, nor for that matter, showing them to anyone who was mildly interested. In fact, the chapter in Paul's book is entitled, "You've Seen These, Haven't You?" Yes, it is true. During the 70s, when I first met Paul and we were both starting out in our careers, I was a freewheeling breast exposer. I must have been fond of my boobies because I remember flashing them more often than not. But didn't everyone do stuff like then? And why recall those boob-flashing moments in my life and name a book after them? Why did perky tits have such negative implications for me? And why was I so resistant to a title that everyone at the dinner party said would propel them to buy the book? Perky. I had always hated that word, a word too often used to describe my persona. Is that the only way I came across cheerful and lively? What was I, a Jack Russell? Where were the other adjectives used to describe the real me? Dark, deep, enigmatic, profound, complex, loyal, intelligent. I'm a Doberman Pinscher, goddammit. I have Doberman Pinscher written all over me. Perky was synonymous with superficial. Vanessa Redgrave is mesmerizing and heartbreaking as Mary Tyrone in Long Day's Journey into Night, and Andrea Martin as her maid Bee is perky. That's the kind of review I was used to. Not that there's a maid called Bee in Long Day's Journey, but if there were one and I had been cast in the part, you can bet your perky tits that I would have been called Perky. Years ago, at the height of SCTV, a journalist from Playboy wrote an article on the 7 cast members. He described his first impression of each of us. Catherine O'Hara was enigmatic, John Candy warm, inclusive. Andrea Martin, he wrote, was perky and accommodating. There is only one word, in my opinion, worse than perky, and it's accommodating. Who'd want to be around that person all the time? Well, me, if she were my maid. Here's the thing about writing a book about yourself. You hope you'll do a good job about revealing who you really are, or what's the purpose of writing. Sure, I hope you're entertained and that you get a couple of good laughs out of this book, but in the end, I'd like you to know there's more to me than just being perky, which doesn't mean that I won't use the title Steve Martin suggested. I don't want to hurt his feelings. After all, I'm accommodating. Wait, I have it. Complex Tits by Andrea Martin. It has New York Times best-selling book written all over it. The end. In the end, I couldn't use the title Perky Tits because Costco, which is a big seller of books, wouldn't put that on their shelves when people were buying Advil in the bulk. So they
don't buy tits in bulk.
So, but your beautiful partner, Devlin Elliott, so I called Nathan, I couldn't think of a title. So he gave me a long list. If I brought my phone, I still have them on there. You had so many fun. Can you remember any of the titles?
No.
No, okay, good.
War and Peace, you know.
So he wrote me back and he said, Devlin just came up with Andrea Martin's lady parts. And I told HarperCollins and they loved it. And so thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.